Hi everyone, and welcome to today's video. I wanted to talk about living in the end and how important it is. So I've manifested lots of things, and I've manifested them in all different ways, and this is just my opinion, and obviously you need to do your own testing. You need to work out what works for you. The same with all of us. I really don't believe in just following somebody's advice, because then you're not really being authentic and you're not on your own journey. You're just kind of living out somebody else's teachings. It's all about testing what works for you. But I've got to the place now where I've manifested a lot of things. There are a lot of different ways, and I guess I'm in that process of kind of solidifying a process that works for me with my ultimate joy, my ultimate happiness. Is systematic, it's easy, it's kind of the most reliable way of doing it. So I think one of the biggest blocks that we have to manifesting is not living in the end and kind of messing with the middle. And I think that we don't always understand exactly what messing with the middle is. So basically every time we focus on something, we're creating it, right? And for me, this kind of I call it force manifesting, and it definitely can work. And I've definitely had results with force manifesting, but I generally find that long term, it's been the things that then have gone backwards again, or it just feels hard work. Like it doesn't feel like being and flow and radiance. And force manifesting, to me is kind of like constantly affirming it, constantly doing techniques. It's definitely worked. I would say it's not very systematic though. It's sort of, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, sometimes it takes a while, sometimes it takes a long time. It tends to kind of be the things that don't really stick. It doesn't feel nice. It doesn't feel nice to me anyways. And I'm not saying it's not an important part of the journey, because I think if I hadn't have done periods of force manifesting, I wouldn't have really been able to remove some of my limiting beliefs and my kind of resistance. So I'm not saying, and that's why I'm saying, if you feel drawn to it, I'm a big believer that different things work for people at different parts of the journey. I'm just at the part now where I want things to be a lot more easy. I want them to be a lot more flow. I don't really have massive emotional react. I think force manifesting is probably the way to go when you have big emotional reactions to things, because it's almost like you're constantly thinking negatively. So you have to do a lot of work to kind of rewire yourself, a lot of repetition. So I'm not decrying that process. I'm just saying I'm not there now, and I'm sure there's lots of people that also are not. And I want things to be kind of flow, easy, systematic, and there to be some kind of, kind of known working process. And for me, that's very much become about living in the end. So when I see people's affirmations, it's really interesting, because I joined a couple of groups. Before, we just see them every now and again on my Facebook timeline, but because I've joined a few WhatsApp groups that are very affirmation focused, I see them so much. And it's really highlighted to me how every single time I see an affirmation, I literally know that person's wound. So sorry, something's crashed then. So if I see people saying my SP is always faithful, my SP is always faithful, I'm like, okay, so you obviously have a real problem with people being faithful. You've got some issues around that. You have a fear. To me, a lot of people's affirmations, and my own ones in the past, you're chosen and things like this, actually are coming from a wound, and they're kind of keeping it alive, because every time you say my SP is faithful to me, you're kind of really focusing on that they're not. In a way, this is how I've started to see it now. Whereas if you just literally pick a scene and you script it, or you visualize it, or you do both, of the absolute, so I'm getting to the process where, so day-to-day living, I'm sure a lot of us have accepted that when we feel those moments of being, and we feel those moments of presence, we feel bliss, joy, complete satisfaction, contentment. It's just a blissful experience when we're in the now, when we're in the moment, when we're single point focus. We're not focusing on the future. We're not focusing on the past. So I've now realized the importance of bringing this into manifesting. And I know when we're manifesting, you'd say, how can you not live in the future? But I find my most successful manifestations are actually from a place of presence. So it's when I manage to get into a state and visualize or script from this is why I believe feeling to be so much more important than people are giving it credit, because it's generally when I get into a state of actually enjoying the experience of the manifesting that I have like immediate results on big things, like within an hour, within a day. And it's when I can really get into feeling it as real. Now, feeling it as real is kind of conscious manifesting. It's kind of manifesting in the now, because you're not manifesting to get something. And that's where I always have really shaky experiences, is when I'm really like force manifesting and I'm like, I want this, I want this. And even if I'm saying it as if I've got it, there's an element of lack in me that isn't really happy until I get that thing. Whereas to me, conscious manifesting is when I'm actually feeling it as real, to the point where I don't even thinking about it as a future event, because I'm so consumed by the feeling of it being real that it's kind of present. So to me, this is what I believe conscious manifesting is, and keeping it all in presence and flow, that you can get to the point where you live in the end, you have a beautiful visual that feels real. It feels as if it's actually happening for you right now. And then you allow your external environment to fill in. And this is actually the nearest to Neville Goddard's teaching. I haven't even read or listened to everything of Neville Goddard, because like I've always been very open. I've come from like a spiritual path. So I've literally read bits of everybody, from like Eckhart Tolle, Conversations with God. I come at it from a I'm not some massive person that studied all of Neville Goddard, but I have seen a few of his things, and just from that I feel like I can get the whole of emphasis of what he's saying. I mean, the things I've watched of Neville Goddard's, to me, sort of show that he very much lives in the end. He gets a feeling of fulfillment, the wish fulfilled. He feels it as if it's real. And then he does not react to anything until his external environment conforms to meet his inner vision. But he doesn't really have that like force manifesting thing, or at least I haven't, anything I've watched of his, maybe it's some more recent stuff, like he doesn't seem to do that. He very much lives in the end. So living in the end, so something that I see a lot of people do as well, and this is something I was doing a lot. I'm wondering why those things escape me, because I've manifested some really big things. I don't really talk about them on the channel because, I don't know, I don't really like to share like too much of my personal status, life. I just don't particularly like to have that stuff out there. Maybe one day. But even though they've been huge, to me, they haven't been huge. To me, they were very much things that, because we all have our own little personal things that we find the hardest, right? Mine's always been love, like always. It's always been that one thing, like everything else to me has been less important, but thus so much easier to manifest. Things that might even shock people have been so much easier for me, because I've always had that, oh, that's lovely, that would be so nice, but I don't need it to make me happy, but it'd be awesome if I got it. And I haven't really meddled with the middle. I've just kind of put it out there that would be a nice thing to have. Sometimes I haven't even been actively manifesting things that were like a long time ago. I've just thought that would be a really nice thing to have, and I've been able to drop it. And then as it started to manifest, what I notice is quite often as the two realities merge, there's this like bit of backwards and forwards. And when it's been things that haven't been like put so much importance on, even though there are massive things, I haven't reacted to that like hot and cold bit. This isn't just with people, by the way, it's like with property, for example, the deal starts to fall through. It looks like you might not get it. And when it's something that I'm just not placing on that pedestal, I very naturally allow that kind of like buffering of the two realities merging to happen, because I'm just like, oh, maybe it'll fall through. I don't react to it, I guess, is the point. And when I see people manifest it, I sort of stay in the end by error, or just as a natural process. And I see a lot of people manifesting SP, like I said, did this myself for so long, in that I would kind of just keep changing the goalposts. So I would, even in the same week, be like, I am married to my SP, my SP contacts me, my SP texts me, my SP wants a relationship with me, my SP has chosen me, and really that's just so many different things. They're all completely different things. You can't be in a happy, beautiful marriage to your SP and then have them choosing you and then have them texting you. Like, it's so diluted. You're not living in the end, you're just living in like 1,000 different ends. Like, one is texting you, one is choosing you, they're all completely separate manifestations. I really have found that the most sort of systematic way now, and I wish I'd have come to this point before, but everything happens in the right time, is to live in the end of like the ultimate desire. It doesn't mean you can't ever move the goalposts, but it's like whatever you currently feel is the end. So like a happy, beautiful union, a happy, beautiful marriage, like a sentence that kind of summarizes it, or you are abundant. You don't really then have to like send off all these like weird mixed signals, like, oh, I sell all my art, I always get money that I don't know where it's going to come from. Like, these are not generally, when I see those sort of smaller micromanaging manifestations, it's always really clear to me that the person has a massive block around that issue, and they're like affirming it. And of course that might be necessary for a period because you want to rewire your subconscious, right? But it just doesn't feel like the ultimate space to be, to kind of keep talking about all your issues basically and keeping them alive. Because if you have a massive problem with people committing to you, or there being third parties, if you're like, I'm the only person that my SP sees, every time you say that, you're kind of remembering that your wound is that there's SPs around, right? Whereas if you're just like, oh my God, I'm in a beautiful marriage with my person, you feel into it, you visualize it every night, then you're not really coming from that wound. Like, a lot of the manifestation affirmations, just to me, all I see instantly is like, wow, I can see where all those people's blocks are. And I know the idea is that you're affirming to kind of work through the blocks, but I do question how much it does when you do it for a long time, because you're kind of keeping them alive simultaneously. So yeah, each to their own, everybody has their own process, but I am definitely moving into the stage where I feel like it's a lot more simple than that. Like, we don't need all these individual ones, that we can find a scene or script something that is a culmination of the things that we want. Like, I am wealthy, I'm abundant, I'm in a beautiful relationship, I'm in a beautiful marriage, harmonious marriage, and just living that feeling. Like, if your affirmation doesn't make you feel whole, and like doesn't make you feel how you want to ultimately feel, then you're kind of just creating more resistance. This is the way that I see it now anyway. So I think it's to be very consistent with your manifesting and to stay present and to be able to have it feel like a flow and a joyful experience rather than like hard work. It's about finding an ultimate goal, living in the end of the wish fulfilled, something that conjures up feelings of joy, and go into that visual, scripting that visual. Maybe you want to do a few affirmations, but then I prefer now affirmations that literally live in the end. You know, I accidentally locked my cat outside. She's meowing. She wants to be in when she's out and out when she's in. So yeah, and then once you've set your visual, you've gotten those good feelings of being in the end, then the challenge is to be completely non-reactional whilst it comes in. And if you can maintain that feeling, from my experience, it's very, very fast. Your real only job at that point, once you've successfully visualized and or scripted or gotten into having those joyous feelings as if they're real, really your only challenge is not to react to anything that's not that reality that you want, which is the hardest part. But the more that we react, the more that we focus on anything that's not that living in the end and that ultimate, and give any focus to it, the longer everything's going to take. And it just kind of delays it and delays it and delays it. And then sometimes you kind of get bored and then you pick a new thing anyways, because you're like, oh, can't over that one. And if you're not over it from like a fulfilled way, because you've genuinely just dropped it and there's still some negative thoughts attached to it, then you've kind of not dropped it in a way for it to come back. It has to be like really neutrally dropped for it to come back in. So yeah, I hope that some people find this useful. I'm all about just finding a way to keep manifesting like one big flow, it not to feel like effort, work, to be really hard or like an all-day process. I really don't think that it has to be that. It might have to be that at the beginning when you have like so much resistance, but yeah, this is where I've moved now after trying so many different techniques. And yeah, things have worked, but for me it feels the most natural and the quickest and the least messing around and kind of messing with the middle, to just see my end scene, see myself in it first person, or to script as if like, you know, dear higher self, dear diary, thank you so much for bringing this amazing blah 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 blah, as if it's already happened to you. Because you want to, like, when you're scripting or when you're visualizing, that's what I feel is the key. I've done months of just like affirming just to try it, and it really like, it's not for me. I think it can rewire your subconscious, but it's not how I believe like our ultimate state of manifesting is. I think when you are writing it or you're visualizing it and you can really feel into that experience as if you're experiencing it, or you're recounting a memory of how you experienced it, then the outer world has to fill in very, very quickly. And as long as you don't react to it, it will show itself in your external environment. So I hope that made sense. Probably a bit too long, this video, but yeah, have a great day, everybody. Mwah.